Hi, welcome to my course Appreciating Linguistics, a Typological Approach. I'm Anindita Sahu, your course instructor. I'm a linguist and I teach various courses in linguistics at IIT Madras. So, let's before going to the course description and what you should expect from the course, let me focus on the objective of this course. So the primary objective of this course is to understand the fundamentals of linguistic issues in a typological perspective that includes various things of a language. Okay, so I'll discuss the typology as a term, or like as the key content of this course tomorrow, in tomorrow's lecture. But today my focus is going to be on how to understand language. What do you understand when I say language? So can you tell me what is language? Yeah, so generally the language is one of the most what is that, understudied discipline. The studies related to language is one of the most understudied discipline, because we kind of take it for granted, because everyone speaks a language and most of us are multilinguals. We speak many languages. There could be people around who speak three languages, and speaking three languages, being an Indian, it's such a common thing. There are people who may know 4, 5 or 6 languages at one go. And the first thing that you need to remember, just by speaking many languages, you cannot be a linguist. You would be considered, like you would be called as a polyglot, but then that doesn't really give you the authority to call yourself a linguist. So speaking a language and studying a language are two different things, are two different issues altogether. So let's have a look at it, look at the some very basic or preliminary informations about language. So who uses language in this? If you look around, since you are a human being and then we are cohabit, like this world, or the planet Earth doesn't just belong to the humans. There are many other species. There are plants and there are animals. If you look around, could you tell me who actually uses language? You might say that, oh yes, my dog can understand what I say when I give him instructions like go fetch a ball and then eat food, sit down. So these kind of words or phrases the dogs do understand, but that doesn't mean that the dog is actually speaking in any language. So that's just a form of communication, and we call it animal communication. And but here for this course, our focus is going to be on language. And when I say language, I mentioned it in the very beginning that it's going to be language with big L. So big L refers to natural language, which is spoken by the humans. And then there are multiple small L's. Small L's are the independent, like the individual languages. Individual languages like English, that's a small L. Odia, which is an Indo-Aryan language, that's a small L. French is a small L. Italian is a small L, or Icelandic is a small L. So these are the individual languages that the community speakers, they speak to communicate, like to talk to each other or to communicate with each other. Can you tell me how old language as a phenomenon is? It is actually very, very old. It traces back to millions of years. And human beings have been using it for really a long time. And if you draw the trajectory from the dawn of the human race to the present time, you can actually claim something like that, okay, language has always been there for the humans, used by the humans also. Okay. However, speaking has been there for a while, but writing is a recent kind of invention. That is why the alphabets are not, like the alphabet are not as old as the speech categories or the speech items. So this is a recent invention. This is a recent process. And the other thing that I would like to highlight in the next point, if you can see, there is no human community that does not have a fully formed language, right? So If it's a human community, they have a fully formed language by now. I'm talking about today's date, on the current date. So all the human beings, they have a fully formed language, or they do use it as a tool of communication. Language does many more important works, but one of those important things is communication, right? However, don't be surprised to know that writing system is essential to humans, or is essential to languages. Not really. Writing system is important, but not mandatory or not essential. There are many languages which do not have scripts. So if you don't have the scripts, you don't have a writing system, you don't have a pattern. But that doesn't mean that your language is any less than any other language which has a script. And if you think about how the children, they acquire language, what is language acquisition as a process, you would you if you just look back and think about it, you realize that a child learns reading and writing much later. Once you start going to school, and then you are kind of exposed to the this whole world of books and the notebooks and then writing system, pen and pencil. But that happens pretty late. That happens at a later stage, at least when you are 2 or 3 years old. But language, 3 years old, if not 2. So but language comes pretty early. So as a child, you first speak a language, then you move to the reading or the writing aspect of it. And remember, reading and writing are also skills, but they are more complex skills than speaking and listening. Researchers like Steven Pinker would say language is a biological instinct. So what do you understand by biological instinct? That means a human child, something like the other instinctive things that you have, something like hunger, thirst. Language is also a need, language is also an instinct. So you can't, the best example I can give, can you ever stop a human child not to acquire a language? If the human child is healthy, physically she doesn't have any problem, and she has all her speech organs intact and they're functioning well. So you just can't stop the child to acquire a language. You might stop the child or to restrict his linguistic environment to some particular language, but the child must have to acquire it if she doesn't have any physical impairment. So that's the reason why we would say that language is actually a biological instinct. And as I've just mentioned, everyone is concerned about language. Everyone takes, we take language as granted because we are so familiar with speaking, we are so familiar with using language effortlessly. We don't really pay any sincere attention to understand what actually goes on when we speak a language. Considering it comes to us naturally, we undermine the importance of language in our life, right? And my contention is that after you complete this course, you should be able to understand that what you see on the surface in language, that's not enough to understand what language as a system is. There are deeper things you need to keep in mind, and then that's going to help you to appreciate this discipline called linguistics. So there comes the title of this course, Appreciating Linguistics, Typological Approach. So now let's look at the last point that has been given here. So through this course, I'm going to talk about linguistics as a discipline, and here we generally pay attention to understand whether speech is correct or incorrect, how a child acquires language. So these are two pertinent questions when you discuss or when you deal with language as an instinct or language as a phenomenon, for that matter language as a system. When you say a particular person's speech is correct or incorrect, what is working there? That's called your intuition. Your intuition as a native speaker will help you to understand whether a particular thing is correct or Incorrect. Now, with this very generic sort of information about language, let's move over to understand who actually works in language. Who do you think work in language? So there are different kind of people. There are different professions that include language or the study of language, the discussions on language, and this is a huge list of all of them who deal with language. The first point, if you look at it, it's written the speech correctionist. So the speech correctionist, they address the difficulties and impediments in language use. So it could be in the written system, it could be in the spoken system, but they are the ones who are going to pinpoint. They're going to tell you, hey, listen, this is where you are making a problem. This particular usage is wrong. There is a problem with the subject verb agreement. So these are the people who try to correct you. They try to modify your speech, or they help you to be a better speaker. Then there is another group of teachers who teach English, for that matter. So they also deal with a language called English, and here English is just a small l. It's not English is L, it could be L1, L2 or L3 for people, but then when you utter the individual word English, that emphasizes on the role or the usage of English in the day-to-day discourse. So these are the people, the teacher of English. They would tell you what is the grammar system, how the rules of English have been there, and then if you want to be a good speaker, what sort of expressions you must have in a given language, for that matter in English, whether a singular subject should have a singular verb. Sometimes the plural subject will have the plural verb, and then what should be the verb form, in what tense. So all of these are the linguistic specific terminologies that a teacher of English is going to tell you. Then English is actually an interesting language. You know why? There are multiple reasons. First, it's the lingua franca, or it's the linking language that the world uses. That is why this is a language which brings a lot of privilege, a lot of prestige and social kind of value, right? So in such a context, when you think or when you consider English as a foreign language, the scenario changes or the situation changes. So when you are trying to learn English as a foreign language, your like the method of learning or the process of learning is a little different. So there are three different ways. English is the first language, English as the second language, and English as the foreign language. For example, many of the Indians, like most of us, we have learnt English as the second language because we have our first languages like Hindi, Odia, Bangla, Marathi, Telugu, Tamil or Malayalam in an Indian context. That's going to be our first language. Second language is English. Then there are people who speak English as the first language, that is the L1. And obviously the Britishers, the Americans, Canadians and then Australians, all of them, they are going to speak it as the first language. So English is L1 for them. Then there are countries where English is taught as a foreign language, for that matter China or Japan or Korea. So these are the countries where English is taught as the foreign language. So their method of teaching is going to be different from our method of teaching, right? And then we need to understand that in the due course of time. Then the next category of people who deal with language is the literary artist. So the literary artist, they do produce literary works. They produce poems, like the fictions, non-fictions, all kinds of things like the literary, the creative things are being produced, and language is used here as a literary medium. So through their pieces of work, like they use language, and then they also contribute immensely to the growth of language. Then there are psychologists who are also dealing with issues related to language, and they would say human language is different from animal language. Instead of calling it animal communication, they would rather put it in a more generic framework, and they're going to say it's animal communication. So people who have linguistic or language impairment, they go to the speech therapist or the psychologist. So that's also an important area to discuss when you try to approach language. Then we have anthropologists, and these anthropologists, they deal with issues related to language and culture primarily, but there are more into it, but the primary focus is on language and culture. And then there is this whole missionary system which has brought English to many non-English speaking countries, considering it becomes a language of religion because of the influence of Christianity in many countries in the world. So especially the non-English speaking countries, the missionaries, they use English language as a tool to spread awareness about things or to communicate with the mass. Then there are historians that we have with us. They study language and society from historical perspective. And then we have philosophers who try to study the logical syntax. So that's an interesting term. So when you think about philosophy of language, you need to consider the term called logical syntax. So we'll talk about it in detail in the next class. Sorry. Then there are communications engineer. So these communications engineer, they deal with this course or they deal with this thing called language from the technology perspective, and they try to transmit messages through different media. And eventually or finally we have linguists. So what do the linguists do? All of them, they are also working on languages, but language is not the core research of their like the core point of their research. Rather, they use language or they deploy language to understand the core areas or the core issues that their discipline deals with. However, when we have a linguist with us, the end product for a linguist is going to be language itself. So a linguist studies languages by using languages, if I can say. And if you approach linguistics as a discipline and linguist as a researcher, I would say these are the specialists. So when you say that they are the specialists, then I'll tell you that these are the specialists of language. And this language is it's mainly you can begin it or you can start it from the natural language, which is the big L, and then you can move to independent or the individual languages, which are the small L's. So linguists are the specialists who study both language with a big L and languages with small l. And what do they study? What do they work on? They primarily work on an organized body of information about language. So language for them is a system. It's an organized body, and they have to study various parts of it or various domains of it. And they also work through investigations and analysis. So investigation, it's the investigation of data, and this data, this is empirical data, empirical linguistic data, and they try to analyze them and they come up with the generalizations. If I draw an analogy, or if I give you some kind of analogy in that sense, so the relationship of a linguist with other language professionals as something that it's something like pure chemistry and the chemical engineering. So pure chemistry is the base, and then when you think about chemical engineering, you have to deploy the theories and the principles of or the theories and principles have to come from pure chemistry, something similar. So the other language professionals that I have mentioned a while ago, be it a psychologist or anthropologist or a language correctionist or a communication professional, all of them, they heavily borrow the insights from linguists as professionals, right? It's always more is merrier. More you know about language, better the research is going to be. So remember, this is all about like a linguist. So a linguist primarily is a specialist who studies languages from a systematic or patterned perspective, right? Then we'll see, why do you think linguistics is difficult? What's so difficult about it? And I must tell you, it's not inherently difficult. So, and considering the course is appreciating, so we have to appreciate this discipline. So if we appreciate, we can't really call it difficult in that sense. If something is difficult, it's a tough nut to crack, then there's no beauty of it, because not every difficult thing is beautiful, or similarly not every simple thing is beautiful, but inherently linguistics is not difficult, I must tell you that. It might be a bit troublesome for the beginners because of various reasons, but if you can overcome the reasons that I have listed here, that I have stated here, you will realize that it's actually just an attitude problem, or it can be just a perception that has been built around this discipline. So one thing that troubles you a lot is the new terminology. So considering we have a lot of discipline specific jargons which are deployed in linguistics, so you might find it a bit tricky at times. Also, the attitude of learning, you need a different kind of attitude to master linguistics, or to appreciate linguistics. You need to be more analytical. Your analytical skills should be more if you want to be a good linguist. So there's a bit of difference in the attitude, which is why some learners, they find linguistics as a difficult discipline. Also, a lot of us, we do not really we are not able to clearly differentiate between language in the spoken form and language through writing or the literature form. We are not able to understand what are the inherent differences between these two. So is the case when we think about language and its script. This also gives us a lot of trouble at times, and there is a flawed understanding why and how script is important or not important for any given language. So there hasn't been a clear idea that the learners have about this course. And also we focus a lot on the correct and incorrect speech. We feel sometimes a little shy when we speak in a different language, and we always think that what happens if I don't speak correctly. So these are the hesitations and shyness that we have with other, like if you think about it from a linguist perspective or from a layman's perspective for that matter. More than that, we also have something called descriptive and prescriptive grammar. This is also sometimes confusing for a layperson, or for that matter a beginner in linguistics. When you say descriptive grammar, our focus is on the description of the language. We are not language purists here. We don't restrict ourselves to a certain set of rules or a certain set of regulations that a language must follow. Not really. We need to be more inclusive. We need to be more, we have to deal with such issues with an open approach, like with an open outlook. So you need to, when you see or when you encounter a particular language, your focus should be to identify what are its descriptive features. If the descriptive features can be analyzed or can be discussed, then that grammar is going to be more suitable than a prescriptive grammar. So what do you understand by prescriptive grammar? There is a set of rules which have already been laid out there, and you can't go against those rules, or you cannot even look left and right when you deal with the rules of a language. If it has been given rule X leads to this sentence, rule Y leads to this sentence. So you just can't alter anything. So this is the purest approach of language. So when you talk about the prescriptive grammar, you are primarily focusing on a set of rules that you have to follow. Generally, as a linguist, we try to refrain ourselves from being prescriptivists. Rather, we are either we think about or we advocate the descriptive grammars or sometimes exploratory grammars, which I'll talk about it later. And my suggestion for you would be, once you get an idea about this course, you shouldn't be a language purist, because I'm going to talk about typology of languages. I'm going to talk about the varieties that languages might have within the languages, across languages. So there are so many other kinds of variants and kind of invariants. So in that sense, when you understand what linguistics is all about as an independent discipline, you should not be a purist at all. Okay. So now just let's quickly look at what a linguist studies, or what does a linguist study. I have already mentioned a linguist studied, or no, a linguist studies languages with small l or language with big L in a scientific manner. And in this connection, what are the different levels that a linguist analyzes? A linguist analyzes phonological levels, which deal with the sound system. She also analyzes morphological levels, which deal with the word and the morpheme system. Further, it's about syntactic level, where we discuss the sentential level questions. Then we have semantics, which deals with the meaning aspect of language, and finally pragmatics, which deals with the usage of language in the discourse, or the function of language in the discourse in its real sense. So these are the primary, or these are the major domains of language or linguistic studies. So when I'm going to approach this course from a typological perspective, or from typological approach, in that matter, I'm going to talk about all of this, all of these items independently. So I'll discuss phonological typology, morphological typology, syntactic typology, semantic typology, and pragmatic typology. So the rest of the discussions will start it with these subsections of typological studies, and I'll also give you an idea what are the extended forms, or what are the extended things that are linguistic studies, and we'll discuss this in the next lecture. Thank you.